I definitely want to ask you about books, like specific books. This question that I keep asking everybody, which I don't know if it's because like I'm actually obsessed with the question or because I think it's like the one marketable thing about this project is like you're a writer, like books are your thing, it's your religion.
Yeah.
It's the historically texts are the things that have been saved, right? Like when whole cities are burning, like they save the books, they rewrite the books. I mean, these things have survived.
Yeah.
They've survived for so long.
Yeah.
So like,
and pass them down.
What books do you keep so that they survive? I think that's like really what I'm after. It's like, if we are in some ways as writers, like not the gatekeepers, but like the people who keep this tradition alive and who keep this stuff alive, what do you keep alive?
Right.
For you, for society, like for whatever.
I mean, of course, strategically, I'd want to like get us all together and like have everyone pick a different one. It's like, no repeats, you guys. Like, the walls are falling down, and we're going to the island, and like we just got to make sure we have all the books. So like, if you guys can just each talk amongst yourselves, I mean,
that's what I'm saying. So through this project, we're creating this library, and I'm curious about what your contribution would be.
Well, mine's a bit of a cheat. Because I would take the Riverside Shakespeare, so it's like all of Shakespeare, like right there. It's really heavy, so I hope I have a good backpack to carry it in. But I couldn't live without those stories and his language. Like I don't quote Shakespeare all the time, but I say things that are phrases from Shakespeare all the time that I just think are normal language, you know. So I totally grew up on him. You know, I think I saw my first play. My parents took me to Stratford, and I think it's Stratford in Canada, in Ontario. There's a Shakespeare Festival. It's like they do it because it's Stratford, like where he's from in England. It's the same name. And I think I saw my first production of Midsummer Night's Dream when I was like 5 years old. I was like really young. And then we also saw Henry IV, which apparently I slept through, and Kiss Me Kate, which was like, you know, hybrid. But I was just enchanted. And then I think I saw like 3 or 4 more productions of Midsummer Night's Dream before I was like 10. I was in one of them before I was 10. So I just totally grew up with that. And I think, you know, he's a dramatist, so it's a different form than I'm working in now. It requires actors to embody the language, and it requires a certain amount of production to set the scene, right? But I just like reading him. Like, I don't really need to see the plays. I really just like reading the language, reading the speeches, reading the dialogue. You know, I love the prose dialogue of Beatrice and Benedict in Much Ado About Nothing. It's like they're the first romantic couple to speak in prose as opposed to in poetry in his work. And as a prose writer, I love that, you know, because they're so sharp and they're funny and they're vulnerable and they're smart. And she's the smartest of all the people in that play. She's the smartest. And, you know, I think that's, you know, that spoke to me. Like Shakespeare's women really spoke to me as a kid. Yeah, so that's my book, I guess. But again, that's like a weird, because like someone else probably wants to save Shakespeare, right? Like, shouldn't I pick someone a little more obscure? You know, they've got Shakespeare covered, you know, but
like, I think it would be important for different people to actually keep Shakespeare, because I don't know, what if we only had one perspective on Shakespeare?
That's true too.
That would be disappointing.
That's true too.
Yeah. Are there any other books that
well, Mrs. Dalloway was like the book that I read when I was like, well, now I'm gonna write a book, you know, one day I'll write a book, because this book is just, I didn't know you could do this is amazing, you know, kind of a radical transformation moment for me, reading Wolfe. So, and as is often the case when we read books that speak to us, like the way that one did for me, it's like, oh, how did I spend all these years not having read this book? You know, like, what was I doing instead of reading this book? So, and again, I sort of think historically about this, I think, in terms of the books I would save. It's like the ones that meant something to me at an important moment in my trajectory or whatever in my life, my personal narrative. So that's why I say those. But, you know, current moment, I guess I'll have to wait for the Neapolitan novels to be bound into a single volume. Helena Ferrante's Neapolitan novels. But then I would take that.
I hope they're doing that.
They better do it.
That would be like a brilliant marketing
It just was smart for them to do that, yeah. Because people are like, which one is the first one? And like, how do I get it? And oh no, it's at the library, it's on hold. Just buy them all. I mean, it would be a large book that probably people wouldn't want to read. Like, we have the Rabbit books, the Updike Rabbit books, all in one volume, and I don't want to read that big fat brick. I'd rather read the paperbacks individually. But it's nice to be able to reference them all in one set, you know? So yeah, I hope they do that. Europa editions, I hope you're listening. We need them. We need them in a set.
We have a small request.
Yeah. Just when you're done with the next, book of her fragments, it would be great if you could put them all in a single volume. Yeah. And that feels like important right now, because even though they are very much the subject of, they've inspired so much writing and so much discussion, and almost every day I think someone calls me and tells me that like they were talking to this other person who's now reading it. It's definitely proliferating as a, it's a current reader moment that's happening, and that's very exciting. But, who knows in 10 years if people will care. So it feels important in this moment to be like, wait, just hold this one down. Like, don't let it be a current phase. Like, let's put this one in the vault, So.
It's interesting how that happens, how easily work gets disappeared and rediscovered, or I'm really fascinated by that.
Me too.
Yeah.
I mean, that's about literary power to some extent. Like, the right person writes an essay in the right publication about this old book. We saw that happen with Stoner a couple years ago. And now people who are readers who I know but are not writers in any way, and they think of themselves as very casual readers, these people are coming to me like, have you read Stoner? I'm like, wow. So it's obviously it works, but it's I'm sure a social scientist has published papers about how this proliferation of influence from the right sources to achieve this kind of critical mass of response.
Well, with the Ferrante too, we have the added layer of it being translated work, which isn't often read in sort of best-selling proportions in America.
Yeah, we can tolerate them like one at a time, like one each year or something. And they're usually like detective novels, I think, right? But yeah, for this work, which is so emotional and like psychologically rich and so massive in scope and so political, both, from a kind of feminist perspective and from a Marxist perspective, it's like remarkable that this is so popular. So, and not just among women either. I think men are also reading it, which is pretty great.